Well, hello, friends. Rich here at the Gospel Rescue Mission with another GRM training. At the Gospel Rescue Mission, we are working to help individuals and our community to flourish with God leading the way. With that in mind, I want you to remember our big, holy, audacious goal, which is to reveal the glory of God by ending homelessness in the state of Oklahoma. With that in mind, we train and teach and we educate ourselves as much as we possibly can so that we can go forward and have success. Now, we don't have all the answers. Even the things that we're proposing, the things that I encourage you to do and that we do here at the mission may or may not work. All I can say for sure is that the things we did in the past are not working in alleviating homelessness. But a couple lessons that we have been able to pick up and we understand pretty fully is, first of all, that this is a complex, complicated issue. It is challenging. And so a lot of different groups and a lot of different theories will come up with this idea of saying we just got to get them education, or we just give them housing, or we just give food, or we just give them a job and that'll fix everything. But we know that that is not true. That is why we have our system the way that we do with individual programming and those sort of concepts. The truth is that the bigger thing, I want to create a picture of this for you so you understand kind of how it all works. Is think of a Plinko board, and on one side you have the in poverty, and the other side you have wealth. In the middle you got middle class in the middle, and then wealth on the other side. And you have all these coming down. You put the Plinko chip at the top, and it has little pegs moving on those things. So maybe a good home, a good past, all those things would be pegs in the right spot. But it could be different for everybody how that chip coming down the Plinko board would react. And so even if you have everything in line, it could be that Plinko board still it puts you in poverty, or even despite all those negative where those pegs would be, could get you over to the wealth or middle class side. So I want us to think of it as more complicated than that. It's not a guarantee. Nothing we do can be a guarantee, except for that God loves us and he cares for us. So that is the first idea, to understand that it is very complicated. Also, number two, understand that we cannot do this alone. We have to partner with our community. That's why we want our communities to flourish. If our community can flourish, that provides better jobs. It provides a better environment for our children, grandchildren to be raised in and to live in, and they have new character and virtues that are part of their society. That all is going to be a great benefit for us. We need to find partnerships, work with who we can in order to help other people to succeed. And the third piece I want to bring up is that the most important thing that we can give to our shelter guests, the thing that we can guarantee that other organizations may not be able to because they don't necessarily have a Christian focus, but we have Jesus. We cannot underestimate the power of Jesus and the hope that Jesus gives. Hope is among the most powerful tools that are out there. So I want to share this scientific study that they did. Is they took some rats and they put the rat in water, and apparently rats can swim pretty good, but put in this tank of water, they can last only about 15 minutes. Very best swimmers make it about 15 minutes, and they're paddling, doing all the things, but then they would die at about 15 minutes. Well, then they took those same rats and they got them to about 14 and a half minutes, close to where they were exhausted and couldn't do anymore, and they pulled up the rats and they comforted them a little bit. They gave them a little bit of hope, a little bit of incentive, and then they put them back in the tank. Now, this is only a few minutes. This is like 2 to 3 minutes of rest time. But those same rats that typically, on average, lasted 15 minutes, now went sometimes up to 4 days of swimming. And all because they gave a little bit of hope. So as we go forward here, I want us to understand that what we give is hope. And Robert Kennedy said that each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others, that's what we're doing here, right? Or strikes out against injustice. Remember, justice is the way things ought to be, so injustice would be the way things ought not to be. So when we do these things, that's what Robert Kennedy is talking about. He says he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and then crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring. These ripples build a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. This is why I believe our big, holy, audacious goal is possible, because together you're a little ripple of hope, and you're a little ripple of hope, and you're a little ripple of hope, and together we can create a tsunami of hope that's running down And I just talked about how important that hope is for the men and women we serve. So we have to do all we can to help them develop a picture of what their life could be like if they involve Jesus in their life, let him direct their steps, and then they start to follow the teaching of Jesus and live the gospel and not just read the gospel or hear about the gospel. So that's the first thing I wanted to cover. Now, the second thing is to understand that what's been done at the government level has been very ineffective. So you can see where the poverty rates are like. So let's take a look at what happens here. In 1966, poverty rate in America was at 13%. All these things put together, $61 trillion being spent, and still at 13%. Very ineffective. That's what I said back in the beginning, that what we've been doing just isn't working. It's not effective. In fact, the numbers, if you go to big cities right now, I just got back from St. Louis, and I've been in New Orleans this past year, and the numbers are just unbelievable, and how many are right there on the interstate. They're not even in the hiding. They're right out there where everybody can see them. They're right there. There's so many. So here we are, knowing we need to do something different. So one of the things that we're going to do different is we tied in with True Charity last year, and I really believe in what they're saying here. First of all, in order to be part of True Charity, it needs to be voluntarily resourced. It means we're not taking taxpayer dollars. I have very little say over what Congress does with the taxpayer dollars. And in fact, Congress doesn't always know what's happening. Sometimes when I talk to our elected officials and I say, this is what should happen, they go, well, I thought that's what was happening already. For example, they're required, according to the politicians, that they passed a law that says before they get out of jail or out of prison, they should have an ID. We all know that doesn't happen very often. And taxpayer dollars are going for that sort of thing. And you go across the board with the legislatures think are happening doesn't actually happen on the ground. So we look to be voluntarily resourced. This is also we're held more accountable because the local folks are looking at us and they're seeing what we're doing, and they're going to vote for the best system with their dollars. So we get donations because we're doing it well, and we're going to have results. And that's really what we're looking for, is results. Now, the taxpayer, they just get the money no matter what. They could do a lousy job and they still get the same amount of money. We want to do the very best possible job we can. We'll come back more to that in a little bit. And the second part, it has to be challenge oriented. This is what we do with our contracts. We're creating a little challenge for them, not an overwhelming challenge. So rescue staff, as you're putting these together, think about how can I challenge them to get out of their comfort zone. Now, obviously getting out of the comfort zone is going to be uncomfortable. That's the definition of being out of your comfort zone. We want to create us a little bit of discomfort. A 1% growth with each contract would do remarkable effects for our guests. And then finally, it has to be outcome driven. So yes, we're going to track number of beds and number of clothing given away, but really we're looking for those outcomes. Did they get a job? How many jobs did they get? Is there somebody who kept their job for 6 months, a year? Sobriety time. Yeah, we offer classes. We can count how many people go to the classes. That's wonderful. But really what we're looking at, because the number of people in class is an output. People come to the felon class and Freedom Club schools require that of them. So we can count that output and say, yay, us. That doesn't really matter to me. What really matters to me is the result. Does somebody stay sober? Does somebody stay out of jail? Does somebody move forward with their life and get past all that? That all happens. That's the outcomes. Restored with their families. All those things we dream of for them. All those things at the top box of our matrix that we've developed. That's what we were looking for. Those are outcomes. That is the real goal. So finally, my last part of this week's training is this. It's many years ago when I was in the Army. I was in my last year. And I had a very uncomfortable relationship with the commander that I had. And we switched commanders, so I was feeling a little bit better. But I was also in my last year, and I knew I wasn't going to be promoted anymore. And I just needed to check the box for a year because that's what the contract said. And I was required just to show up and do these different things. So my first thought was I'm just going to do the bare minimum. And God got a hold of me. I was reading the scriptures and I came across Colossians 3:23. I was reading a devotional book, the Daily Bread, I think I was reading at the time, and it hit on Colossians 3:23 and a similar idea. And then another devotional that I happened to get in, and then a sermon I was listening to online. All these, all in the same week, came up to Colossians 3:23, and it says, "And whatever you do, do it heartily as as to the Lord and not to men. And I began to realize the work I was going to be doing over this next year was going to reflect not only on myself, but was also going to reflect on the fact because all the people I worked with and worked for knew that I was a Christian. I wanted to give them the very best I possibly could. In that last year, because I was giving my best, I learned a lot. I was highly respected in a lot of different circles. My life actually took off and did great things because of following this edict. So I want to challenge you when you're doing work here. Don't do the bare minimum. Do all things as unto the Lord. You're not working for Rich. You're working for Jesus. And I want you to give everything as if he was here watching you working, because by the way he is. And so you see something needs to be done, do it. Don't send out an email to everybody saying, hey, by the way, so nobody's doing this. No, take care of it. Then if it's not really your job and there's something you shouldn't maybe be doing, you pass it on to a supervisor who can say, oh, okay, let me take care of that in the future, but thank you for taking care of it right now. But sending a mass e-blast out to everybody saying, I noticed this isn't being done, that is not helpful. Do things all things unto the Lord. You see trash on the ground, pick it up. You see something a conversation needs to happen, don't run away from the conversation. Step in to the conversation. Do all things as unto the Lord, and you will do well here at the Gospel Rescue Mission. All right, talk to you guys soon. Have a great week.